In 2005, I had a meeting with the founder and CEO of Steve L's in this very building behind me in Hicksville, New York. It ultimately became the first of the 5 Chipotle deals that I did on Long Island from 2005 to 2008. Enjoy the episode.
Did you catch that? My price still going up like NASDAQ. We send shots, make them duck like Affleck. All this fake news, can we bring the facts back? Never backtrack, still on the up and up. And nobody catching up to us. Every time we double down, then we double up. So if we keep winning, can you really call it luck?
All right, guys, so on this week's episode, we're gonna talk about early Chipotle. You hear me speak a lot about how I brought Chipotle to Long Island, New York on podcasts. All right, let's back up for a second. So last week on Digital Discussions, I had the joy of catching up with my dear friend, Mark Frankel, the former director of real estate at Chipotle, that I pitched for the account, won the account, and if you go back to that Digital Discussions, he'll give you some tips and tidbits on how to show up properly prepared to win the account. Well, I did win the account, and that was back in 2004. Not sure what month, but 2004 we started to tour Chipotle on Long Island. They had a few locations open in Manhattan, and we were designing the strategy and figuring out exactly where to locate the first Chipotle on Long Island. I'm reminiscing here because before I had any Chipotle to go eat at, basically, I was given this information here to kind of give to landlords, educate them in the marketplace. But let's back up even before that. So I'm representing Starbucks, my first national account that I landed in the industry around end of 2002, 2003. I talk a lot about that. That's what really actually enabled me to even go in and pitch the Chipotle account, right? I learned from the school of Starbucks, which you'll learn from last week's Digital Discussions is a lot like the school of McDonald's. And I was enabled as a result of learning how to select real estate through the school of Starbucks to apply that to my pitch with Chipotle, and that was the secret to winning the account. So what did we do from there? We got in the car. It's funny, I just literally out of nowhere went back into these old files that I still kept. This ultimately is the first deal that we did in Long Island, a former Krispy Kreme that you saw the intro from, and we'll show a little bit of footage on the existing locations that we ultimately did. The first, I want to say, handful of them on Long Island. All right, guys, so we're in Hicksville, New York at the first ever Chipotle location that I did back in 2006, across from a Starbucks that we just opened about a year and a half ago, a Starbucks drive-thru, which is a pad to the Broadway Mall. I want to show you something interesting here. So this was a former Krispy Kreme that was ground leased by Sears behind us here, and actually Sabre is currently leasing this redevelopment of Sears with Seritage Properties. This building had a drive-through on it, okay? It was a Krispy Kreme drive-through, and Long Island, New York is one of the toughest places in the country to get permits for a drive-through, right? So this lane right here used to continue right around here and go along the side of this building. And I'll never forget, I'm here in a meeting with Steve L's, Monty Moran, Carl Baylor, the whole development team for Chipotle, and we're talking about what a shame it is to close this drive-through. And the funny part is, Chipotle's looking for drive-through locations now. COVID changed the game, and obviously the company is a lot further along. They're mature with probably one of the most successful fast casual, forget fast casual, one of the most successful restaurant concepts on the planet ever. And yeah, it was an amazing time for us, and we ultimately closed the drive-thru. Let's see if they open it back up. But we have a big mixed-use development project behind us here. You can see the old Sears, you can see the sign out, and we've already secured some really exciting leases here. So this Chipotle pad will no longer be standing alone in front of nothing. So what's really interesting about the early design that hasn't changed much is Steve L's friends did all of the artwork that you could see here, and they did the design as inexpensively as possible, because if you recall, Steve was just trying to earn enough money to ultimately open up a fine dining restaurant. Chipotle was like a stepping stone. It was never supposed to be anything close to what it is today. And you can see like the furniture here is basically the same as the first one that opened in Denver, Colorado. Okay, so we're in Carle Place, New York in the Country Glen Shopping Center, and this was the second location ever on Long Island. What's interesting and one of my favorite stories to tell about this location behind me here is the landlord, Mr. Murray Miller, a dear friend of mine, was not really interested in having Chipotle, which might seem crazy today, but it lets you think a little bit about early on how you have to educate landlords about a new concept. Okay, Chipotle had been in business about 10 years at the time, but not in this market. Nobody really knew who they were. So when I took Mr. Miller at his request to Bowling Green in New York City to check out a Chipotle location at lunchtime, guess what he said to me? Jay, the place is great, but it's far too busy for my shopping center. I don't want them. Fortunately, I was able to turn that around and ultimately open up the location here. Fun fact, I also opened up the Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza next to him, the first location outside of South Florida. All right, guys, so I am in Farmingdale, New York on Route 110, across from the first ever Starbucks drive-thru on Long Island at the former Polytechnic University, which was developed by my partner, Ken Breslin's family. And back in 2005, when I worked on this deal, the development was underway, and based on the fact that I was working at Breslin Realty, we were able to jockey for position for this prime end cap up on the road, because when I started negotiating the deal, actually that Panera Bread was on this end cap, but you know, we were able to work things out and get our client the better position with the outdoor seating up on the road here. This is the third location on Long Island, and right in front of a new Walmart at the time, the largest square footage Walmart that was built on Long Island at the time. Okay, so we're right across, as I mentioned, from the first Starbucks drive-thru on Long Island at Breslin Realty's Republic Plaza Shopping Center. In the distance, you could also see the first PDQ location on Long Island that we opened just about a year ago. So I'm in Uniondale, New York at the number 4 location to open on Long Island, right across from the Nassau Coliseum. And you can see here, the bridge crossing the street is Hofstra University, brand new Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital across the street, and the largest office building on Long Island, RXR Plaza, at just about 1 million square feet. This behind me was actually a nightclub that a lot of the folks for Hofstra University used to attend, and they had just lost their liquor license, so it was perfect time for me to come in and start negotiating a deal with Chipotle. And as you can see here, one of the downsides of this location is the lack of parking. There's very few stalls, but there's cheater parking on the side street adjacent. So we're at the Arches in Deer Park, New York, which is a Tanger outlet center. The first Tanger outlet center actually to come in between New York City and Riverhead, which draws a tremendous crowd, believe it or not, regardless of how far it is. So this project was built by Blumenfeld Development Group, I want to say 2007, 2008. And this Chipotle location is a little different than the ones that we saw, but it's number 5 on our list of the first 5 Chipotle locations that we did on Long Island. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. So this episode was about Chipotle. We've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of very, very exciting brands early on in their lifespan. Orange Theory Fitness from unit number 1, European Wax Center from unit number 2, Solid Core from unit number 7 or 8. The list goes on. Many companies that I obviously don't have the time to mention, but the point is that we are a national advisory firm that can help any company expand strategically across the US. So if you have any concepts in your neighborhood that you think are exciting, unique, and we could actually help from an expansion standpoint, please reach out. If you're a local broker, we're happy to work with you. If you're not in the business, we're happy to work with you. We just love doing what we do, and we're kind of good at it. Hope you enjoyed the episode.